yo.
Episode 3.
Oh man, how you been, Cave?
I've been good, but I've been thinking a lot about the best scorers at each position in the NBA, in NBA history.
I'm not gonna
And
lie.
it's
I was gonna say I've been thinking about life a little.
no, these all-time scorers are just keeping me up at night. I can't sleep thinking about who the best scorer is at each position. And I'm excited to get into this episode. Low key, but how have you been, Magnet?
Cool. I think we may need to get you out to a strip joint or something just to get your mind off ball for a little bit. Pause.
I definitely need to wear a mask if I go out. No Dwayne Haskins, not going to put myself or the podcast in jeopardy like that. Don't want that negative publicity.
Like your boy James Harden.
I go out every night before we pod, hit the strip clubs, and then come here and drop 30 with the hot takes, and then collect my money.
Fuck it. But no, I've been good though. Busy. I'm pretty sure just like yourself, been busy trying to stay focused, doing some research on all the topics we've been having going on. But what up, world? It's your boy Groovy Mike, aka Groovy Ralphie, aka the Groovy one, aka I don't even know. We're here to pod today though. You know what I'm saying? Know what I'm talking about? But go ahead, Cave, you want to get right into this shit?
For those of you who don't know me, which I don't know why you wouldn't if you're watching, but I go by AirQuest, aka Quest Sparrow. That's just what they call me, aka 3-point phenom. We're gonna try to keep things a little tighter, a little slimmer.
I just got a new one for you, aka Make It Rain on the Strippers.
I do have a tattoo, Let It Rain from 3, on my body. Ink my whole body. I don't give a mother truck. I'm excited to we're out here episode 3, trying to bring y'all some good content, and trying to iron sharpens iron, you know what I mean? So if we're doing a shitty job, let us know. If we're doing a great job, throw us a heart or like a thumbs up somewhere. Let us know. It's a Valentine's Day right around the corner, or actually when we post this, it probably will be over. So hopefully all y'all get some cheeks over the weekend. And then hopefully once after you guys that post nut clarity, you can enjoy a little bit of podcast from Test Run.
It's lit. But shit. You been watching any of the sports lately? As far as like any hoop, football? Well, football's over, but hoop or fucking cricket.
The last bit of basketball thing that I saw on social media was Steph Curry's whoop-de-woo layup that people were slobbing all over him for. To me, I'm not saying that's an easy layup, obviously, but I've seen it 100 times before. Michael Jordan has an entire package of those.
Yeah, he does.
George Gervin has a package of those. Kobe's done it. Tracy's done it. Vince has done it. It was impressive, but let's stop acting like it was the best thing that we've ever seen in the history of fucking basketball. That's all I'm saying.
Get off their knees is what you're saying.
Get off, like wipe your chin. Like let's act like we've hit a shot before. Oh, and on top of that, so a little rant here. And when Juan Toscano something, and part of the reason why this is a big story is because no one knew his name really. Did you see he threw a pass to Steph Curry across the court? Steph Curry let it fly, and before the ball goes in, Juan is doing some crazy dance and acting like, he's already celebrating the shot going in, and people were posting that Steph Curry's teammate celebrates before Steph Curry makes a shot, and then on Twitter he clapped back and said, "Hi, I'm Juan. I'm Steph Curry's teammate." So then he got a lot of publicity for that, and good for him. Sounds like a really cool kid, really mature. He's grateful for the opportunity he's in, but the kids of this era, hey, let's act like we played, let's act like we've made a shot before. Let's act like we've made an assist before. And that might just be the old head, like, old man, get off my lawn in me. I might look young, but I'm 29. I played in an era where let's just act like we've been there before. And these young kids are celebrating and all goofy and smiles and stuff. And it's, again, I'm out of my game after Joe Johnson, Jason Kidd, those guys, no nonsense. Like, let's have a little bit more, just respect for the classiness of the game. And it doesn't have to be all bells and whistles and jolly gumdrops and Jolly Ranchers. You know what I mean? So it makes me sick a little bit to my stomach.
No, I feel you. Hopefully, that stomach ache and pain goes away. But last thing I saw was yesterday, actually. Your boy Zion went 14 for fucking 15 from the field.
Pretty efficient.
No, for sure. And like, for someone who got no jumper, granted, I think the majority of his points were from the paint. That's still pretty impressive. I mean, for as young as he is, he's not really even a full year into the league, if you really count that. Like, what did he play last year? He barely played at the beginning of the year, and then ended up playing the bubble, a few games in the playoffs. Like, yeah, because if people recall, like, he wasn't there at the beginning of the bubble. Remember, he was out of town because I think someone did catch it in his family, and then they ended up, dealing with that situation. It came late to the bubble, so he was out for another week or so just for like COVID protocol, and then ended up playing. So he really didn't play a full year at all, even to right now. So I think that's really impressive for him to go 14 for 15, whether or not he shot any jumpers or not. I still think that's really impressive for someone of his build and his stature, to be able to bang with people like that. And I don't think it's that impressive for him to be 280 and bang with people, but I think it's more impressive how his height is. The guy is 6'8", but I think in reality he's 6'6", and just to be that athletically gifted and everything. I think that's just impressive to go that. But Dallas was no slouch either, is who they played last night. And those stats right here. Your boy Doncic. Am I saying this right? Luka Doncic?
I believe so.
46, and your boy Porzingis 36.
Do you think Porzingis is enough of a superstar in that system to be able to, I don't want to say get them over the hump, but do you think he's a perfect complement to Luka, or do they need more?
I think for sure Dallas needs more. I mean, don't get me wrong. I do think that Porzingis he's way better than obviously what a lot of people thought getting drafted from New York at that time. And obviously I think he's proven that during that time there with Melo and everything like that. I think he complements Luka really well. But I just think it's all about him staying healthy. But I think Dallas still needs another piece. I don't think that Dallas is a contender at all. As great as Luka is, I just don't see that. And I don't see him. I mean, they consider him an MVP. I don't know about right now, but he's always in the talks of it. Like, I'm here to give y'all the truth that y'all don't want to hear. I don't think he's an MVP player. I just don't. You can call that hating, you call that whatever the hell you want it to be. I just don't see it. Maybe because Dallas has been so shitty the past century since they last won a title. And I just don't see how it's not. I just don't think we're in an era where you can have one person just dominate and bring your franchise back. I think that's completely over. We haven't seen that, I want to say, in a long time, where someone had to dominate and bring it just to even make to the playoffs. If I'm wrong, correct me, but I could recall, I don't recall any team where it's just one superstar was able to get them to the playoffs, especially this is his third year, and if you want to consider last year to be even a year, maybe he's been in the league 2 years. If that, you know what I'm saying?
He has a lot of pedigree and experience.
Oh no, for sure. I mean,
he's not.
Yeah, I just don't think he's an MVP player. I then you could put up numbers, you could do this, but I mean, we saw LeBron come in and completely change Cleveland right away. Like that whole thing changed. We even saw Melo come in and change
Denver
when he got drafted. Like that's what you call change. Melo made the playoffs every year when he was in Denver. Like he did not make the playoffs. They were either in the first round or not. So I think just us seeing a time of where we have a draft pick come in and just completely change the franchise, I think that might be over. Because Luka hasn't proved that yet. I mean, they've been trash since.
Well, and I think also that leads a nice segue to the fact that the MVP race is very narrative driven. And I think Luka was the darling going into this season as that next guy to, get over the hump, get over the hump. And, you got James Harden moving on. Giannis is 1-2. That's right. He was one back-to-back last couple years. And bless you. So, bless you again. So Luka was kind of next in line to take that next step and then get over that hump. And so I think a lot of like the MVP narrative is media based. And you could throw us in there now. We are media members with this podcast. But so pretty much the Luka was the next in line, and then I don't think it was the expectations that are making them falter. And he's getting crazy numbers, but Bradley Beal's getting crazy numbers. He just passed Michael Jordan for the most consecutive games scoring 25 plus points to start a season. He just passed Michael Jordan. And obviously on a bad team, you're not going to get any MVP love, but in this era, you can put up numbers on any team.
Sure.
And so Luka, I think the Mavericks, I would have loved to see this team in a different era where, because I do like the pieces that they have. I do like the talent on their roster, but to win a championship in this era, I don't think they have the horses or firepower, because you have to have either a third superstar or you have to have a loaded role player roster. For example, the Lakers have LeBron and AD, and then they pick and choose all the role players. Everyone wants to play with them and, potentially get a ring. So they don't necessarily need a third bona fide superstar. Dennis Schroeder, Kyle Kuzma, they got dudes who can play, obviously. But I don't think the Mavericks have what it takes to get by, another super team. And then you can see their struggles this year with just the run of the mill teams. And so I think Luka, as great as his numbers are, I don't think he's going to win MVP this year, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, hell, they're 13-14 right now in the league. Granted, they're one game below 500, but in the West, we all know that you have to be better than that to make the playoffs. Like, you can't just be under 500. You can't even really be 500 to make the playoffs in the West. So,
right.
That's why, to me, I think that's just like his stats blow him up to be bigger than what he is. I think, but I will give him this though. I think that with the help of Porzingis actually being able to play this season than he was the last two, I think that really does help out their winning. I think that's a major cause of why they're below 500. Because last year, I don't even know. They didn't really finish pretty high last year. No, they were in the playoffs, but I mean, I don't know. I just don't. That just wasn't. They lost to a team in Houston. Am I correct in that? Was it Houston?
I don't recall exactly. They might have lost to Houston. I remember Luka hit that huge shot over, I think it was pre-playoffs, over Paul George and Kawhi, that three ball to win it. So they kind of found their groove a little bit in the bubble to an extent.
Oh, for sure. But also I got a whole thing with the bubble. We can talk about that another time. But I think the bubble really covered up a lot of things because people were out of shape. People came in I don't know, that's a whole nother topic. I just think it really just covered up a lot of people's flaws and weaknesses, like your boy Tyler Hero.
look at the fall of the Heat this year. Going from
Like I don't think they were a finals team at all. I just think they were probably more prepared during that break.
right, and they got a lot of young legs, and they just kind of hit that groove, that Mike groove when it mattered, and it. So yeah, the bubble is one thing, but yeah, I think I think the Mavericks, just going back to Luka real quick, when he's putting up 46 a game, and we're going to talk about scoring players on this podcast, but how much of it is just this era is like, it's just so wide open to score. How much does that like knock, these huge numbers of today? Or do you still kind of take, because for me, I look more at the eye test of how they're doing it. And are they capitalizing on the era and that there's, no help defense, or it's wide open, or there's, bullshit little, ticky-tack fouls, or are they scoring in a plethora of ways with a complete arsenal of offensive moves? And I think Luka's got a lot of skill, and for how young he is, even with the pedigree, I think he's going to be good for a long, long time. I think he's kind of the modern day Larry Bird at this point, to a certain extent, kind of a do-it-all player for their team. But scoring, I think Porzingis might have been better as a number one option in New York, being able to kind of freely play through him, but the ball plays, through Luka, and then they shoot a plethora of 3-point shots.
No, for sure. And I do think the ball should be ran through Luka. I mean, yeah, I'm knocking the guy, but I still think, he's literally their best player. I just don't think he's an MVP type player, or how they say he's going to be the MVP of this league one year. I just don't see that. I think they're missing a few pieces in order for that to happen. And those moves happen, then I can't just say he's going to be a future MVP without those moves happening. Because I do think they need to work on their bench.
Well, in the game I watched the most recently, and I mentioned on another pod, was when they were playing the Warriors and they were trying to outgun them. And that was when Charles Barkley said, "This is stupid ass basketball." And it is. And I believe at the time, the Mavericks were the worst 3-point shooting team in the league. And yet they're shooting just 3. I watched 15 possessions, 13 of them were 3 balls on both teams. And granted, at the time, they're actually ironically making the threes, but it's just, it's so wide open now that, Tim Hardaway Jr. comes down and just chucks. And it's like, you have Luka, you have Porzingis, like it wasn't within the flow of the offense at all. Like they're taking like transition threes, and if you're, what's his name, Dwight Powell, the big guy down low, you're just rim running. You're just trying to grab a rebound and rim run, and then you're not even a part of the offense. Like big guys in this era with such an up and down run and gun style of 3-point. It's like, I would hate to be a big man. Like you can't even establish yourself on the block and get a touch like every 5th possession just to keep your mentally self in check, because you see dudes at the gym. A lot of people can attest to this, where you're hooping and some dude hasn't touched the pill in, 5, 6, 7 possessions. Imagine if you don't get a touch, like you stop kind of playing defense. Now when you get it, you're just going to chuck because you don't know when you're going to get it again. If you miss, you're not getting the pill again, probably the rest of the game. And so in the NBA, yeah, they're all getting paid, and, they should all be on the same page to win games. But like that ego kind of still is, relevant. Yeah. Like, and so I would just, as a 3-point shooter, I guess I would love this era, but as a purist, it's kind of sickening to just watch them go up and down and chuck threes, man.
Oh no. Yeah. It's bad, but it is what it is. When you can, like when the rules are changed to manipulate the game to become a more scoring paced game instead of letting you play hard-nosed basketball, that just kind of is what it is. There's no hearsay. It's been said that the league always wanted to be get the fans more, get the casual fan more involved, as far as like you see scores, you see the oohs and ahs instead of you see someone playing great defense and the games are only 80 points. So I get it. But it's just a reaction to what this era is today and like how the rules are manipulated to inflict on the game. So It is what it is.
And it's funny because I am a point guard first and foremost. I'm a pass first point guard first and foremost. And but we are going to be talking about scoring minded players on this podcast. And so a little full disclosure, I don't, well, we'll jump right into it right here. We'll start with we want to go through each position, who the best scorer was in the history of the game, in our opinions, at each position. And full disclosure, I don't think point guards should be scoring minded. I think they should be facilitating minded and be able to run an offense. And I don't think, maybe going back to Isaiah Thomas, I don't think a championship caliber team has been manned by a scoring minded point guard. I think Allen Iverson, if you throw him in the point guard mix, I think he was almost potentially the one to get over the hump as a scoring minded point guard or ball or dominating guard. But it doesn't work. It doesn't, when your point guard is your like number one like option and he wants to score first over anything, then that's not championship basketball. So I just want to put that out there, to preface this point guard discussion, because out of almost all the guys on this list, I'd rather take Jason Kidd, Steve Nash, those kinds of point guards, or even just have your point guard as a role player who does more than just put the ball in the basket. Without further ado, who do you think is the best scoring point guard of all time?
So for me, like I said, I like to stir the punch bowl with my dong and get everyone on the seat. So pause. I personally believe that Gilbert Arenas is probably the best scoring point guard that we've seen. If it wasn't for him, I don't think we see a lot of today's point guards. I don't think he gets enough credit for that. He said that he's done things first, but today's point guards just did it better. And I would agree with that, but he is the one that did it first. He's the originator. His size for being a point guard, I think just the way he scored, anyone would consider him probably a shooting guard more than a point guard, but he was listed as a point guard.
Yeah,
I'd say in college he was more of a shooting guard, because he had Jason Gardner as his point at U of A, University of Arizona, and so I think that's where a lot of it he honed most of his guard skills, at least for the wing, is because that's where his main natural position was. But I think as he got to the NBA and he was 6'4", they put him in that position, and he was just bigger than most point guards. He said he was able to bully you on the block. He was able to get past you because he was just so quick on his first step, and he was a great shooter. I mean, he was shooting where they're shooting today, as far as like the logo and like right pass and half court. He was the first to do that.
Right.
Really nobody else doing that besides him. He was just that good of a scorer. And I can't really see anybody else holding up to him today. Defense is a whole nother thing if we're talking that. But no, as a point guard, since he was considered that, and it's in the NBA, like they put it down as him being a point guard, that's who I go with as probably the greatest scoring point guard that we've seen.
Well, and I'm going to pull up some stats because, been getting some feedback. People say we need to fact check ourselves a little bit on here. We don't want to just throw blind stats out there for people. So Gilbert, at the peak of his offensive prowess from 05 to 07, 3 years, he averaged 25.5, 29, and 28. This dude, he was a bucket. He was a blowtorch.
And let's put this in perspective, because that doesn't seem a lot today in today's era. That was at the top of the league. That's in the top 3 or 4.
Yeah.
People leading the league in scoring. Like I said, they weren't taking as many threes as they are today, and they weren't getting as many fouls called. But Gilbert was up there and getting free throw attempts. So he was attacking the rim. but just to say, like, even though those averages may seem low to like today, as we compare it to today's game, that's pretty high. So put Gilbert in today's era, he's not missing a beat.
Yeah. When he had 28.4 points a game in 06-07, that was third in the league behind Kobe at 31.6 and Carmelo at 28.9. And then LeBron was right behind Gilbert at 27.3. So that's we're talking about all-time greats. And Gilbert is in that he's in that stratosphere for 3 years at the peak of it before, he wanted to play Call of Duty in the locker room with Javaris Crittenton.
So Agent Zero, they called him Glock 9.
Yeah, Hibachi, Agent Zero, if you're watching the pod, we'd like to get you on here because you're very volatile in today's media markets. But no, he's definitely was in contention with for the best scoring point guard of all time for me. And me as a Trace McGrady fan, I look at, like, in these kind of conversations, I look at the peak of what they were capable of and what they were able to do. And I'm not looking necessarily for longevity in this conversation. And so I think just pure pound for pound bucket. I mean, you can't just do it for like a one year thing. I mean, he did it for multiple years and he still averaged, a healthy points per game. The rest of the, he wasn't in the high 20s the rest of his career, but like Gilbert was a walking bucket. And he paved the way for a lot of players. And I feel like if he didn't get into those crazy troubles, or if he would have even beaten LeBron in the playoffs and didn't, flub those free throws, him, Caron Butler, and Antoine Jameson Brendan Haywood, that was a hot team. That was a fun Washington Wizards team to watch. So if they could have gotten over the hump a little bit more in the playoffs, he might have even been more of a household name from a basketball standpoint. So Gilbert, I mean, that's my dog. It's funny you bring up real quick about how he wasn't a pure point guard at U of A. And like you said, I think that really did go to help him because he had to work on his isolation skills and his off-ball scoring. But then he naturally moved to point guard in the league and then, had the keys, to be able to dominate smaller guards being his size. And he didn't really have a weakness offensively.
Yeah. And he gave Kobe 60.
Right.
And he gave Kobe 60 in LA, and then he gave Kobe, I think, 39 in DC. So that goes to show you that one of the greatest, where some people would call Kobe the greatest of all time, like number one, but for sure a Mount Rushmore player, give him 60 and 39. Like that's impressive. Like that goes to, and Kobe being a natural two, and Gilbert Arenas being put to the point guard position, like that's impressive. Yeah. Not to mention he gave 45 to Utah, your boy Darren Williams. I mean, that's your boy.
He put up numbers on almost everybody at one point in time or another. And he's a self-proclaimed gunner. He'd come down and chuck. But
he's even said that I'm not looking to pass. I'm going to get mine and do what I do.
But yeah, and the difference between him and other point guards doing that is he could actually fill up the cup. You know what I mean? Like he could literally score any given way on anybody. And, he was like, he's really good. I mean, and he was in contention for my best scoring point guard. And I may be a little hypocritical here in dinging some of the players from this era for the lack of, again, the play style of the era and how the officiating is. But my number one scoring point guard of all time is Damian Lillard. I'm a huge fan of Dame. And again, I don't know if it's a blueprint to win a championship with a scoring minded point guard, but I don't think he's just scoring minded. I think he actually does do what is necessary for his team to be successful. He just, like Gilbert, happens to be extremely talented at putting the ball in the Tim. And you've seen him in the bubble. He is pulling up from the logo against double teams and just with the utmost confidence draining them. And he needs to do that for them to win. And then playing alongside an undersized two guard and CJ McCollum doesn't make life easier for him because it allows other teams to, you could argue, have defenders out there that can just switch. And we're in an era where everyone just switches and switches anyway. So if you get the pick and roll and you try to isolate a big man, they don't have a traditional team in Portland, and he doesn't have a ton of help. He's playing with, Carmelo Anthony, who's having a resurgence, but an undersized CJ McCollum who can fill it up in his own right. But the team is on Dame's shoulders, and he continues to answer the bell. And what I love about Dame is the way he scores. He has unlimited range. Now he's in that conversation with Steph Curry that he's a logo shooter, and he's been more relevant, in the sense of playoffs and appearance. Steph's been dealing with injuries, within that whole organization and everything. But I think Dame he is the most lethal deep shooter right now, but he can score in any given way. He can attack the 10. He's got low key underrated bounce for how small he is.
And to add to that, I think some people will give it to him. Not a lot, I think, do, or at least I don't hear a lot about it, but he's probably just the greatest finisher as Kyrie, and we hold Kyrie to a high standard. I think the only reason we don't really talk about Dame being a great finisher as far as like getting to the bucket and like finishing with ease is because Kyrie does add the little pepper to his midair, or and Dame doesn't do that. He's just going there to score on you. I think he can do it, but he just doesn't. Like his whole thing is just to go out there and attack you and kill you. That's his mindset going into the game. Like I would say he's somewhat of a Russell Westbrook-esque as far as when he attacks the rim. Dame is going to go to the rim and try to score on you or dunk on you. Right. He's going to get there by any means.
He doesn't play with his food. What he does is, like you said, he's in kill mode. He's trying to get the bucket, and he's got that kind of old school mentality. And one of the reasons why I love watching him play now, especially in this era, because it reminds me of an old head who comes out. He's not going to play with his food. He's going to make the move necessary to get that space or attack the rim and not do any razzle dazzle jelly fam, up and under bullshit that he doesn't need to do. And so he's going to be as efficient as possible. And he's underrated. People he gets respect as, a top point guard in the league, but they put Steph Curry over him. They put Kyrie over him. They used to put like John Wall over him. There's a lot of point. Russell Westbrook would be just by default over him in a sense because of everything he can do. But Dame, I think one of the things that really impressed me as well, and I know we're talking, scoring point guards, in which, again, I think he can score the ball from every level with ease over anybody and get any space that he needs to create a shot from anywhere. But even when he was getting double teamed in the bubble, in the playoffs, at half court, or even beyond half court, they'd have someone pressuring him all the way up the court, like almost face guarding, and then they would run a double at him at half. So he would need to get a pick and roll at half court to get any kind of space. Like that's LA Fitness guarding the dude who has 13 in a game to 15. Like no one does that in the league. That's ridiculous. And so, but what I loved about Dame is even when they'd throw those double and triple teams at him and basically box and one him, he would still be willing to make the right play. He wasn't forcing to us like outrageously, like I still got to get mine. And then it came to a point where, oh shit, we're going to lose this game if you don't start shooting, because Gary Trent or whoever else, they're not hitting these shots that we're giving them wide open. So Dame, I'd rather take a contested bad shot from you than some of these other guys shooting. And so that's why I love him as an all-around point guard, let alone just a scoring-minded point guard, because he can score, but he also does what's necessary for the team to succeed, in my opinion.
No, for sure. Honestly, little side trivia. I actually seen him firsthand in college. My freshman college, we played Weber in an exhibition game. Exhibition, like preseason. And online, it wasn't preseason. It was actually for the season. And man, the player you see today was literally the player back then too when he was in college. Like he was the same guy. Like he'll pull up from deep. He was attacking the rim at will. And granted, we were a Division II school, but he took us just as serious if he was playing a D1 school. So that just goes to show you like the kind of killer mentality he has in him. And it was just crazy to see it firsthand, because I remember hearing the rumblings before that. I think that the next year he went, or that end of the season was when he went to the draft.
Mm.
And just how great and talented he was. It really is when you see those kind of players firsthand before you see it on like the big stage as far as the NBA goes, and you know that that's something special within them. So, and not to mention, I mean, a lot of people would say he's a mix of Gilbert in a sense that Gilbert was doing a lot of this prehand where he'd stop on a dime, pull up from 3-pointer, and Dame is that also. So I don't disagree with that pick.
So you could feel it, like his greatness in a sense when you played him, even like before he made it to the league.
Well, pause, but you could you could see like there was something different that was in him. Pause. Like you could just see that. Like you could see like when there's something within a player and there's a reason he's getting this much hype. Like, because I recall hearing like the rumblings before the game, like, yo, he's definitely going to be like a first round pick. And he's Weber State. Like Weber State is.
They're not known for their NBA lottery picks. Basically.
Well, they're the same division as NAU, Big Sky, the Big Sky. I'm pretty sure, at least at that time, they were, or either Big Sky or.
But they're at that level, like the NAU level.
They're one of the. They're not in the Big Five. The
power conference. Yeah.
So just to see that and hear those rumblings of how like he was going to the league, and to see it firsthand why he was going to the league is just incredible. And like I said, I can't disagree with that pick.
Well, and just to so I think Gilbert and Dame are lethal. I know we're probably going to actually, people might off rip disagree with us on both of those takes, because a lot of people right now think that Steph Curry is the most talented, scoring point guard of all time. And I do want to just address that. I think he's a great shooter. I think he is in a dream scenario for his abilities, it being in such an offense with the amount of talent he's had around him for his career and having the ultimate green light. I think as a scorer, it's an underrated aspect of being a scorer is having confidence, and having confidence that you can take any shot at any time without repercussion. And Steph can literally airball. He could shoot a shot, turn around and dance, and then airball, and Steve Kerr will just chuckle, and he can come down and do it again. And so, not taking anything away from Steph's ability, but he's a 3-point shooter through and through, and to me, he's more of a 2-guard running the point with the ultimate freedom. And so I can't put him pound for pound up there as a scorer against Dame and Gilbert, or even Isaiah Thomas, or Allen Iverson if we put him as a point guard. But any other point guards that you feel like should be mentioned here?
Well, to build off that Steph Curry point real quick, I think we both agree we do give him as far as like being a great shooter.
Yeah.
As far as scoring, I don't see that. He can't really score in multiple ways. I don't see it anyways. The two we mentioned, Gilbert and Dame, I think Dame's big enough and as much of a bully to post somebody up if need be. Gilbert did that. Like he was able to post people up. And I think that goes into consideration. I mean, hell, Baron Davis, for one, is a great scoring point guard. He was backing people in. He was going to bulldog you. He could shoot the 3 and he could get to the rim. He's going to dunk on you.
Right.
The same thing with, just had it. Damn it. Gary Payton, the glove.
A bully.
Not mostly known for his scoring, but he can score on you. That's why we're not considering him one of the greatest scoring point guards, but he could score in multiple ways. And that is what I think we took into factor in why we said these players. Gary Payton would post you up. That's been given. Like we've seen him post people up. He can shoot the 3. He wasn't a great shooter, but he could shoot it. And Steph really, if you look at it, the majority of his points are coming just from 3. He doesn't have really much variety to his game. Like, yeah, he could shake and bake you, but that's cool and all, but I mean, if you take away his three, he's not giving you much more. And granted, that's the whole point of going to being one of the greatest shooters out there, is that I guess you don't need to add that to your game, but that shouldn't be a reason not to add it, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah. And, he either shoots a three or he goes all the way to the cup for a layup. And being surrounded in a system where it's wide open basketball with one of the best shooters in history in Klay Thompson, and then having Kevin Durant there, and just having the team be yours in a sense, it makes it easier to be a scorer. And like Gilbert and Dame, that's the guy you have to stop, and the whole world knows it during that game. And with Steph, you could throw a double team at him, or you could just keep a guy face guard him the whole time, but they have other horses that can put the ball in the basket. So it's just not the same circumstance. But I would be doing a great injustice if I also didn't bring up Jerry West, Oscar Robertson, Nate Tiny Archibald. I know that's before our time, but the numbers and what those guys did in their eras, Jerry West with all the pedigree, I know hardcore Laker fans could
clutch.
Yeah, like he's the logo for a reason.
He's the only player to win an MVP in the finals and not win the series.
Right. So fact check us on that, but that sounds right. But Oscar Robertson, with all he did with scoring throughout his career, and again, that's also a different era too. But they paved the way for a lot of these guys. So I think there's a lot of good point guards. You could even throw Stephon Marbury in there, Isaiah Thomas.
Who? Earl the Pearl.
Yeah, Earl the Pearl.
Jesus of North Philly.
And then Baron Davis, Tim Hardaway, Tony Parker. There was a lot of point guards who could score in this league. But from a pure bucket getting, I can't disagree with Gilbert or Dame.
Oh no, for sure. And also too, we've seen Gilbert play in multiple systems as far as and not miss a beat, except for maybe his Orlando and Memphis years. Just because at that point he was technically a shell of his former self with the knee injuries and everything like that. So
right.
We've seen him do this almost this is who he is. He's been this player since college.
Yeah.
And Dame, like I said, we've only seen him with one team, but that's who he's been since college. So I think that's why we picked those two.
And then, moving on to shooting guard. This one's hard.
And full disclaimer, we're excluding the GOAT, the greatest of all time, Michael Jordan, from this category and every other category, because I think we know where me and you stand on it. Mike is just Mike. A lot of people build their game around him since he got into the league. Scoring machine, averaged 30 a game. Who knows if he didn't take the fucking five years off, as far or whatever, how many amount he took off. What was it, 5 or 3 years total?
Yeah.
And then his second year, where he broke his foot. He didn't play until literally the last, 11, 17 games of the season. And then played in the playoffs. So imagine if that didn't happen, where we say a bunch of what if these players didn't get hurt or not, whatnot. And imagine if he didn't retire from basketball. He'd probably be the all-time leading scorer without a doubt. And I think his career average would have been higher than 30. But he was just a beast, could score literally anywhere. Great mid-range shooter. And I think his fadeaway should be considered also one of the greatest weapons in basketball, like his fadeaway per se. And didn't shoot a lot of threes, was okay. But if we also want to go to the what if you were in this era, Michael couldn't shoot threes. Well, we also say that about other players in what if. So I think Michael would have definitely worked on his three-point ball, and would have been a great not a great three-point shooter, but what we see LeBron be as a three-point shooter, I think we would have seen MJ be as a three-point shooter. How he gradually progressed.
Right. Yeah, I think so we're putting Michael in his own category, obviously. And yeah, everything you said, I couldn't agree more. Paved the way for so many people, was the blueprint, the godfather of scoring the basketball at the guard position. And, he was a master to the student that I believe you are choosing as the second greatest shooting guard scorer of all time. And who would that be?
So I picked Kobe beating Bryant. My reasoning, simple. Also, I'm biased on it. Literally my favorite player of all time to watch. The man scored 81 points, and it wasn't just hearsay. We have actual footage of him scoring 81 points. And prior to that, he scored, I think it was 63 and 3/4 or 65 and 3/4 against the Dallas Mavericks. So he literally could have done it that game too, if he wanted, if he would have played the fourth quarter. Great score, averaged about 25 a game for his career. I think it would have been way more if the Achilles didn't happen. And then he had a 60-point game, his last game. Those are just some highlight points. Kobe was just a monster. He was so technical in his footwork that it was just hard to stop him in the post. It was hard to stop him anywhere 15 in. It was hard to stop him at the three. I think, and I want to give him also some credit too. I think he, at least in me first really growing and learning to love basketball, I thought he was the first to really jab you at the three and shoot the three and also pull up at the three and made it a thing. I mean, I want to say he was like a big part of also why today's game is pulling up from the three. Granted, Kobe was, and he was actually shooting pretty far. He wasn't pulling up at a dime like most people are today, or like when Gilbert was, but Kobe was still shooting pretty far from the 3-point line off like just jabbing. And like I said, he was not crazy athletic as Michael was, but he was still stupid athletic. I think that's always one of the knocks on him and the Jordan comparison is that Kobe is just a little lesser version of Michael. And I think that has to do with his athleticism. Kobe was still crazy athletic. He was able to do certain things I don't think we've seen Mike do, as far as like against the Knicks where he came down, windmilled, off the baseline, dunked it, fell, came through, ran down. Like a lot of what Kobe did, I think, as far as athletically, comparing him to Michael may be a little bit underrated because he was still crazy athletic. I mean, the man played with a glove on, and I've never seen no one else play with a glove on, and he was still out there killing. But no, I that's just me. Like I said, I'm biased a little bit, but just seeing the things he's done. I mean, he had a whole month where he just scored nothing but 40 points. And within that month, he had, I think, maybe 2 or 3 50-point games. And yeah, we see James Harden do that today. But Kobe was doing it in an era where threes weren't taken as much. He was attacking the rim, hitting his mid-range, shooting some threes, but mostly it was around 2-pointers. Yeah, man, he's just a beast. So I think that's why I got to give him as my number one grading shooting guard without counting Michael.
Right. And it's really hard to argue with the 81 points and some of the scoring feats that he's had. Like you said, he'll go on month tears where he's just dropping 40 burgers on everybody. And then you also saw that little window when he didn't have Shaq and Powell, didn't have Phil Jackson. He was a bucket. I mean, you've seen, he was in kind of a similar situation to Tracy McGrady and Vince Carter and some of these Allen Iverson, some of these other players where if you don't get 30 plus, you're not really in games. And so he got to put up crazy numbers for a couple of years there and really showcase what he could do without a superstar like a championship caliber squad. So it's, it's hard to argue against Kobe at number 2, but as you know, and I'm a little biased here as well. Trace McGrady is at his peak was arguably the best scorer of all time. And you talk about the 81-point performance. Tracy dropped a career high 62 against Gilbo and the Wizards in a winning performance. So he's dropped 62. He's dropped a lot of those. It's funny how many games do certain superstars when they have 52 after 3 quarters or something, and then it's a 25-point blowout. do they just not play in the fourth? You know what I mean? Like how many, I would love to see someone have a write up on how many times someone could have went for like a record, but just didn't have to for the sake of the score,
Right.
and Tracy McGrady, he would put in his work in 3/4 sometimes, have 46, not have to really play in the fourth, or maybe, same with Kobe as well. But, and then also, so Tracy, in my opinion, could do everything that Kobe and Michael could do, but he was 6'8", 6'9", like you even say 6'10". He was a freak athletically from a length standpoint, and he had a feel for the pull-up game. He's in my opinion, with Kevin Durant as well, the most like effortless scorer that we've ever seen. Just no one could guard him. He could come up and just pull over anybody. He had the handle. He had the ball on the string. At his peak in Orlando, he was just yamming on everybody. He could attack the rim with ferocity. He could shoot deep. He could shoot pull-up threes like Gilbert. Just come down, just clap, clap, just in your face. And when he got hot like no one else. That 13 points in 33 seconds against the Spurs is a great thing to point to. Now granted, I don't know what the Spurs were doing to allow them, back in that game, but Tracy had this ability to just, he scored over Bruce Bowen, Tim Duncan, like he just, that performance alone, in my opinion, was like Kobe's 81-point performance, in the sense that, that's a once in a generation type situation. And it's sort of hard for me to, really combat the argument that he only did it for, 3-4 years. But, he averaged over 30 a game. Like that's no small feat in that era. And so we were really having a discussion for a couple of years, who was better, Tracy or Kobe? And Tracy was playing with a bunch of mailmen and, and bunch of, yeah, they weren't great. So, and shout out to Daryl Armstrong.
Another argument we had, but I'll save that for another time.
But you could see why Tracy would be my best shooting guard.
To better your point, I think the Spurs knew what they were doing. I mean, right. Some of those he got fouled.
Yeah,
in his face in some of those threes he made. So, no, I couldn't disagree with Tracy being your number one pick. I could disagree on him being put in certain situations, but no, I think these are probably one of the two that definitely deserve that greatest scoring shooting guard that's not named Michael Jordan. So I have no argument there. But I will say that some honorable mention, I think if we didn't mention, we might get some slack for, is literally Dwayne Wade. The only thing I think that ever knocked his game, and I think why we're both not putting him up here, is his 3-point shooting.
Mm-hmm.
It's not unknown that this man couldn't shoot a three. Like he just wasn't a 3-point shooter. Even if you look at him when he made a three, it looked real weird to me anyways. Like when he came up off his release and everything, it didn't look bad. It just looked like it didn't flow right with his game.
Well, and just to add, he's a 29% career 3-point shooter.
Yeah, and that could also be due to him not taking that many threes and just missing. Maybe he took a little bit more, maybe his percentage would have been up, but go ahead.
Oh, he only averaged he averaged 3.6 threes a game his last year in Miami, which again, this is the era that we're in, but he never averaged, or he averaged 3.5 in 2009, but he really basically never shot more than three pointers a game. And he never
was the year he led the league in scoring, right? In 2009.
He averaged 30 a game in 2009. So, and on top of that, his 3-point percentage, he never shot. His highest ever in a season was this last season at 33%. His last season in 18-19. So he's not a 3-point shooter.
Yeah, the shooting guards we're talking about, they at least shot at least well into like their like 30s, like late like high 30s, um, in threes. And I think that's what we're not gonna like because he's a great post player, great footwork. Definitely, I think one of the main not inventors, but one of the main starters of the Euro step. Like he's literally one of the people that put it into play, used it to his advantage. I think he was even credited saying that he saw Ginobili do it one time. He's like, I need to use that. And he took advantage of it. Like he was great. He was hard nosed, would take a beating in the like down low whenever he went up against the trees back then. Um, just a great player to watch. If you ever wanted to watch someone who like takes way less dribbles than what we see in literally in the two guards we talked about, I suggest you watch Dwayne Wade. Probably one of the most efficient players as far as like a 1-2 dribble, maybe a 1-2 shake and get to the basket or pull up for his mid-range. Literally great person to watch. But like I said, I think because due to him not really being a great 3-point shooter, that really does affect, I think, where we rank him.
Yeah, I think Dwayne Wade is a top 5 shooting guard of all time.
Oh no, same.
I think, yeah, his from a scoring standpoint, if you don't have, that aspect, if you have a weakness, and his 3-point shooting was not a strength, and shooting under 30% for your career is considered a weakness compared to the other grades. We are nitpicking. It's not like he couldn't hit threes, but I do feel like that does knock him down a peg. But as a finisher, as a competitor, as an inside the arc player to just get a bucket, one of the great scorers of all time in manufacturing points. And Dwayne, what you saw it before LeBron got there with Shaq. He was a dog before the big 3 days, and I think Dwayne he deserves a lot of credit.
For the Final Four.
Yeah, this dude, he's been a winner, a proven winner everywhere he's gone, since college. And it would be a disgrace to not, as I like to say, Tracy McGrady or Kobe. After that era, when Tracy went to Houston and around 2010, it was Dwayne Wade or Kobe. So we were really having that conversation when they were going, head to head in a lot of those matchups, marquee matchups, and Dwayne Wade being undersized as well. He showed so much skill. And one thing that bugs me of the recency bias of Dwayne is when he lost a lot of that athleticism. Father Time is undefeated, unless your name's LeBron James. Dwayne Wade he kept late in his career, he would come off those screens and he used to just let it fly when he gets that little separation. And then he kept pump faking. He played with his food a little bit too much, and just instead of just trusting his game like Carmelo has in his resurgence in Portland, where just let that bitch fly. You know what I mean? But so that's just nitpicking with Dwayne, because he would always do that damn pump fake, trying to get you up in the air and trying to kind of out trick you when his athleticism and speed wasn't elite anymore. But no, I love Dwayne Wade, love his game. Also want to throw Pistol Pete Maravich out there. Played a lot of time without the 3-point line. They said in college
he was taking those. Yeah.
Oh yeah, he could have averaged 60, but they didn't count threes.
But what's funny is that he averaged 44, I think, twice.
Like, that's insane.
And that could go to situation, because he did play for his dad at Louisiana State. I think it was it Louisiana State it's Louisiana State. I'm more than positive he played at the LSU.
Yeah, it was LSU. Yep.
LSU?
Yeah.
And he averaged 44 points a game. Playing under his dad, granted, but to still average 44 in an era where there's no 3-point line, it's crazy. Like, I think that goes back to saying too with I think Jerry West. Like, he played with no 3-point line. So imagine if he did. Like, these, granted, like I said, they weren't shooting deep range logo threes, but they were taking 3-pointers that we see today that are just regular NBA threes without stopping on dime, but they were shooting these threes. You know, Pistol Pete Maravich was like, granted, that's literally before our time, but great player. I mean, came in the league, did a bunch of things that people wouldn't think he would do with the floppy socks, with the, I think he was one of the originators of like the flashy passes. Like he really did was doing that. And like this whole game really evolved around him being this scoring guard and be able to flashy pass whenever he wanted to.
Well, and yeah, he played just doing a quick little read up on Pistol. He played without the 3-point line in college, and he played without a shot clock in college too. So the rate of play, there was no repercussion for slowing down the game against him.
Oh yeah.
Like imagine, like, so he was truly before, his era. And just the sheer numbers and what he can do and the stories that you hear about him, we would be doing a disgrace to not mention him. And I personally would be doing myself a disgrace if I didn't mention Joe Johnson as one of the best scoring twos of all time. Now, again, full disclosure, I've watched more Joe Johnson than anyone I know. That's my favorite player. And like, you modeled your game after Kobe growing up, learning all the ins and outs of footwork and, different ways of scoring the ball. I was a student of Joe Johnson's game, and 7-time All-Star, was basically part of that 25-5 club, could do it all. But what I love most about Joe Johnson's game, and it's similar to Brandon Roy as well. He had a nice little peak there. But he was a sharp shooter who could also score in a one-on-one situation. And what Joe Johnson lacked was pizzazz and athletic finishes for his highlight reels. But pound for pound, he has the respect of all of his peers in the NBA for 20 years of what he really could do with the basketball. And I mean, all jokes aside, Joe Johnson was a bucket, and he still continues to prove that he's a bucket at 39 years old. And just a pure hooper, still hooping for the love of the game. I have to throw him. I mean, he's a 7-time All-Star. Like, I like to say he's the best player of all time, but and everyone knows I'm joking. That's either Tracy or Michael, but Joe Johnson was an elite scorer for a long time. He's just super underrated, and when he makes a shot, he acts like he's done it before, which I really respect. And then also Allen Iverson. Allen Iverson, is he a 1? Is he a 2? I think, we could also talk about him being in that Gilbert Arenas, Damian Lillard mold. Took a team to the finals.
But could we? He wasn't really a stop on the dime 3-point threat.
Well, maybe not a style of play, but I'm saying like a dude who can go get buckets as a small, like as a point guard or a small guard. He scored in an abundance of ways. And he was a dot. He could finish as well. I feel like he has his own style. And Allen Iverson, he was a walking bucket, and he could have been great at football too.
The league in 4 times in scoring.
Yeah. So how do we not have him? How do we not talk about it? Like, should he be a point guard or a shooting guard? Should he be? But where would we put him? In talking about scoring guards, like where would he rank?
Yeah. See, like I said, I just think his height was really not an issue at all for us to put anywhere. I just think that with him being so small and with the people we are naming, I think they take advantage of him being that tall. Granted, I think they'd have trouble guarding him on the other side, but I think, playing one-on-one, I think that would really be a detrimental loss to him, is him being kind of small. Granted, he was strong for pound for his height and his size, but so is Gilbert,
Right. So is Dame.
So I think that'll be hard to really put him up there. But no, I mean, pound for pound, Allen is definitely one of the greatest players to ever touch the ball. And just him being him. I mean, he did everything his way. He was crazy in college. Literally took that on from college to the NBA and became what he became. Literally took an underdog team that had lived. We want to talk about scrubs. that had scrubs on that Philly team. Lily, I think they had Mutombo, but I mean, Mutombo's not giving you even 15 a game. So,
Right.
Allen took a bunch of really, really low bottom level players to the finals against the Lakers. If they didn't play the Lakers, they may have won the finals if they didn't play the Lakers that year. But who knows? That's up for debate. But no, Allen is definitely. I think we should give him some love. Another two I think we should give love to is Ray Allen and Clyde Drexler. I think our position. Reason this is literally a quick reason to give Clyde. The only reason I would give Clyde any kind of any kind of praise in this is because he was once compared him and Jordan. It was once him and Jordan at a time until Jordan shut all that up. But no, Clyde definitely was a great scorer in his own right. They didn't call him Clyde the Glide for a reason. He definitely would glide in the air and shit on you. And Ray Allen, I know a lot of people know him more of as just a shooter, but no, he was probably one of the first people to really shake and bake you from the 3-point line, like Curry, but also more of a on run through screens, off ball type of player, and find his way to get his buckets that way. And he could yam on you.
Oh man,
like don't take Ray Allen to not be this attacker to the rim. No, he was yamming his first few years in the league as far as with Milwaukee and with the Sonics. So yeah, I just had to throw them two in there as another honorable mention. Like they were getting buckets. Like they were somewhere within 25, 26 a game around those periods of time that they played earlier in their career.
No, yeah, with Clyde, to touch on him real quick, there's a reason why Portland didn't take Jordan. They took Sam Bowie because they had Clyde and they didn't need another Clyde. And so Clyde is, I mean, he's on the dream team. He's a top, guard or wing scorer of all time. And a lot of people don't remember seeing him play. And this is a good time to maybe like go back and try to watch some game film, go back and put on some highlights and see what some of these dudes could really do. Because again, with the recency bias, similar to Ray Allen, we remember him as, just shooting big threes in playoff games. But man, Ray Allen on the Bucks, Jesus Shuttlesworth, and then on the Sonics when he really put the shot all together with athleticism for a couple of years, was absolutely a terror for defenses.
Sure.
And people, they just remember him as hitting these threes and being a killer from beyond the arc. But I remember Ray Allen as, there's Instagrams of like, don't forget he had low key bounce and he's yamming on dudes like, and so Ray Allen definitely deserves to be in this conversation, especially with the longevity. And you add the 3-ball as, in my opinion, the best shooter of all time, and athleticism and can score at all 3 levels. How is that dude not in this conversation? You know what I mean?
Oh, no, for sure. Exactly.
And then, and Allen Iverson too. He did play with bums. I pulled up the roster real quick just to have this in front of me. He's playing with Matt Geiger, Tyrone Hill, George Lynch, Aaron McKee, and Eric Snow. And yeah, he had Dikembe Mutombo. So like, the roster around you does play a part in what they ask of you to do from a scoring standpoint. And so let's not take away anything from Allen, but like you said, if we're talking all around shooting guards, his height hurts him on other aspects of the game. But man, Ray Allen, from just a pure bucket getter standpoint, like I love talking about him and guys like Dwayne Wade. That they're just not, they don't have the God-given size and athleticism of Kobe and Tracy and Michael. But they were elite in their own right. And, if we're forgetting anybody, let us know. We're probably coming up here on the 1 hour mark. We could end things here and then save small forward to center on the next pod.
Y'all can check us out then.
Yeah. And now small forward is going to be a hot debate because there are a lot. Power
forward. And no, I think the last 3 are going to be really, really good topic of conversation.
Yeah. I mean, I've already had rumblings of people telling me who they think is the best scorer at small forward ever. I don't know if I agree with it or not. You know, but yeah, no, we'll definitely we'll touch on those the rest of the positions on the next pod. Keep things tight, and you know, I think this was a good discussion for sure. Hopefully, it opened some eyes to some people. Some killer. Joe Johnson, best shooting guard of all time, basically.
Oh no, for sure. And like I said, I'm here to stir the pot with my dong. The truth that you don't want to hear but need to hear about some of your favorite players.
Steph Curry, you're not the best scorer. I mean, all you do is shoot threes. I could.
Oh, like I don't know. I would say even Kyrie has some versatility in his game. He's even posting some of these guards up. Like you see him not back down, but he'll catch it and he'll hit you with some footwork in the mid range. Like I don't see Curry doing that. I'm not saying he can't, but I'm saying I haven't seen it. And if there is someone, pull up a clip and show me, please.
And just to add to that, people want to say he's got the ball on a string. I've seen him dribble the ball off his shin and knee more times than I can count, and then he ends up, the defense relaxes, they stand up, and then he shimmies through them, and then he looks like
a championship because of it.
Yeah, he looks like a dribble god because he fucks up, and then the defense relaxes, and then he just happens to get a bucket out of it, and it's like, oh my god, let me get on my knees. It's just like, you know, and so I think I do see Kyrie. We didn't really touch on him, but I can see people claiming he's the best scoring point guard of all time. I mean, from a pure talent standpoint, skill standpoint, I could see where people want to throw that in there. So I'm glad you brought that up.
You could even argue, well, is he technically a 2?
Right.
Just because, granted, he is 6'1", 6'2", and they put him in the point guard position, he has more of a 2 mentality. I mean, with James Harden now, he's going to be a 2. Like, he'll bring the ball up. Granted, we're in a time with this positionless basketball. But no, you could also make a claim that you could put Kyrie in that shooting guard. Now he's not nowhere near at the top echelon of the shooting guard,
right?
But you can make an argument. But if we're gonna put him in point guards, I wouldn't knock anyone if they said they had him there. But you got to remember, if we're putting up against our greatest, they have to play D. Like when we're making this debate, we're also thinking about whoever we put there, they're going to have to play one-on-one with somebody at that position. And like I said, I think the 2 we picked are definitely going to play bully ball at some point. They're not just going to sit there and jack threes and trying to shake you. They're going to try to get to the bucket.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, no, I agree. And I think this has been a healthy discussion, and I can't wait to delve it. There's so many good scoring wings that I can't wait to talk about on the next pod. Like, and then the centers is going to be crazy too. Like,
oh, for sure.
So, I mean, if we missed anything from a point guard standpoint or shooting guards, if you guys disagree, I mean, let us know if we're off our rockers. If you agree that Joe Johnson should be higher on my list, let me know that as well.
But yeah, again, like, comment, subscribe. Tell us how good of a job we're doing or how shitty of a job we're doing.
All right, y'all. Streets.